morning and welcome to the show Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. My name is Emmanuel Ujadigele. Here we bring it to you as it is when it drops and from where it drops. We're reaching you live from StarTimes channel 190 on the DTT platform, and you can also check us out on all our social media handles on Facebook and Instagram, where you can follow us live, and Twitter too, and catch up on all the episodes of your shows that you've missed. You can also check us out on YouTube at Western Spring Television and do well to subscribe to our channel there as we bring you amazing content. Thank you for starting your day with us on the show this morning.
Well, thanks for joining us again on the 4th day of April 2023. It's the Morning Spring on Western Spring Television, and I'm Timmy Tope at Jijola Oluwala. Good morning.
Right, so we have the papers for you this morning, quite a number of them. And some interesting headlines and some interesting stories coming out from the papers this morning. I would give you what is on the faces of these national dailies when we return from this break. So stay with us. All right, welcome back to the show. It's still Morning Spring on Western Spring Television. Let's start with the Punch newspaper now. The Punch newspaper has a banner headline ahead of handover. Military vows crackdown on security threat, warns IPOB, others. As on page 2, and it says, nobody should threaten the integrity of Nigeria, truncate democracy. It's coming from the defense headquarters and the army chief. APC asks Biden to disregard anti-Tinubu petitions as protesters demonstrate in U.S. Politicians rooting for interim government irresponsible, mischievous Buhari media organization.
Quite an interesting
Number
one.
of writers there on that story. A military vowing to crack down on security threats, warning IPOB and others to stay away from fomenting trouble. Quite a very timely warning, if you ask me.
Yes, it is. It is really. It is. Anyone that is planning, to threaten the security, like they said, should be, nabbed, and the right thing should be done.
Anyway, let's move on from that story now. Look at the pictures underneath. Some stories coming out from Rivers State yesterday. Tony Cole of the APC and some supporters of the PDP clashed in Rivers State. 1 killed, scores injured as Rivers APC PDP supporters clash. And you have pictures of that. And then see the empty road that had been barred, that had been closed to traffic after that clash by the supporters of the two major parties there in Rivers State. It's been a long time coming. The aftermath of the election is still reeling everywhere.
Yes.
And in the country, states are still going back and forth. Supporters are fighting each other. But it has calmed down in some places, but in other places, it seems like it's just revving up. And we can only hope that this is restricted or relegated to just banter and exchange of words, and not necessarily exchange of blows and gunfire on the streets, taking lives and destroying property of other people. And now a lot of persons are injured simply because of the political ambition of some persons. I think we should mature beyond that point as individuals, as Nigerians, as persons. We should see ourselves more than being political tools for politicians who really don't give any. They're not really concerned about what you do or who you are or what you bring to the table, except what you bring to the table for them. And we just hope that all of that is resolved. But at the bottom strip of the Punch newspaper this morning, page 14, Ramadan, divorce among young couples alarming, says Sheikh. I have a different opinion on that. A lot of persons talk about feminism being the cause. A lot of persons talk about irresponsibility. A lot of persons talk about bad attitude being responsible for this. But I feel that Nigerians and people really are waking up to the fact that you can't treat me anyhow. I know that divorce is not it's not the
way to go.
Yes, it's not the most readily available option, but it is an option that can be explored. If someone isn't doing right by you, it doesn't have to get to the point of violence. But if you're being manipulated, if you're being abused emotionally, verbally, I mean, all of these things can take a toll on your mental health.
Yes.
And if you feel that I can't do this anymore, I need to safeguard my life, I need to safeguard, because a lot of persons are walking psychotic patients. They don't even know they need therapy, they need to see doctors, psychologists, because they've been so battered. But because of the stigma of divorce, they say, and I know that is alarming, the rate is alarming, some other persons are taking advantage of that, but I see it from the prism of people being aware and not settling for less, and not enduring what they should be enjoying. There will be bad times, but bad times should not include battery, should not include emotional assault. You know, we just like to see that, well, he has not beaten her, she has not beaten him. I mean, there's a lot more to
So I think that's a
that.
factor that has always been there that people don't want to put up with anymore. The word you said, endurance. People endure things that they shouldn't have to endure. And you're right, really. You're very right.
Well, on page 4 and 5, pages 4 and 5 of the Punch newspaper this morning, absence of Lagos bishop accused of raping pastor stalls trial. Pages 4 and 5, get more on that story on those pages of the Punch newspaper. And on page 14, Waneze Tinubu, someone look out as Mon Orji Kalu's wife, comes to Kalu's wife, Ifoma, died sometime yesterday. And I was on Twitter and I was disgusted, really, by the attitude of many young Nigerians who you would expect to be the beacons of sympathy and empathy. You know, the Yorubas say that even if we're fighting, it's not up to the point of death. You know, I think death should be sacred. It should be separate from politics. Someone's wife died. The woman has not offended you. If you have a political axe to grind with a husband, that's your business. But I saw a lot of people putting out hateful comments, talking about how it was retribution for his political whatever, how his beginning karma is catching up with him, how he deserves it. And I'm like, I mean, someone has died. Respect that woman who did you no wrong. Her husband is the person who wronged you. Her death has nothing to do with his political career. I mean, they are two separate things. They are mutually exclusive, you know. But I like that other persons are standing up for Orji Kalu. And I am one of those persons who feel that if someone, no, you don't do that at all. You don't. It's not, nobody likes to lose a loved one. Nobody loves to die.
Even bad people.
And the fact that they are seemingly bad people now, because your own best parent in the world is someone else's toxic colleague or someone else's toxic boss. And so while you believe that your mother or your father is the best, you go to the civil service, to their office, and then you hear what people have to say, people have encountered, and you know, so that is relative, and it shouldn't be cloud our sense of empathy and sympathy. And we pray that Orji Kalu finds some sort of comfort, and that his wife's soul rests in peace. That's on page 14. Now on page 20, the man who's been in the news so much recently, Hadi Sirika, Minister of Aviation, ITA warns Nigeria's airlines trapped fund hit $802 million. I said it some weeks ago that nothing will be done to repatriate those funds, and it's just going to keep going until these foreign airlines decide, okay, we're tired, we're pulling out of the Nigerian economy. And so we'll go back to the era of taking ships, you know, to go to wherever you want to go. You take 3 months or thereabout on the sea. And I mean, it's just going to be funny to see how we navigate those waters. But I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know too, but I just sort of have a feeling that this is being done intentionally, probably to force the hands of these people to withdraw.
But if they withdraw, we don't have a national carrier. We don't have the Nigeria Airlines or Nigeria Airway or whatever it was called. Never saw the light of the day. I mean, it was launched with pomp and pageantry. There was a lot of noise around it, but we don't have our own version of Ethiopia Line or British Airways. We have nothing. So if all of these people pull out, who will run the international route? But I don't know.
Some of these people that travel, some of these people have private jets.
Yes, they
But the
can.
ones that
But
will
they can
suffer,
borrow each other's
That's
jets.
because of the Jackpot syndrome. So that's what I'm thinking, that it might be some sort of way to also force.
Will you now stop?
Hence.
Will you also stop the ships from moving from the docks?
At least many other people will be discouraged.
So okay. There's also the exploration of the Edo style. You know, you can check out Edo Airways if you want to. Well, on page 19, federal government approves 173 loan apps, bars illegal online banks. That will always be funny to me. Those loan apps now will be getting into the market, and then you begin to see people. You be getting messages now. If you know any Oluwole Amobi who has borrowed 50,000 from so and so loan app, he has run away. If you don't want him to be arrested and all of you embarrassed, tell him to pay the money. I mean, on a lighter note, man, I don't know how Nigerians do. How do you think that you borrow money with your BVN, with
And
your
you can
and you can escape? I mean, it's somehow
Ridiculous.
yes. But so if you have any outstanding loans to pay any credit agency, please do well to pay, especially if you know me. I don't want to get, because when I get those messages, I reply with anger. Like, I don't even know this person. We don't talk. How are you sending me messages?
You know that people just drop other people's numbers.
No, it's
Random
because
numbers.
No, it's because the apps now have access to your contact. It's part of the permissions you have to give to the app to be able to use it. It has to have access to your phone, your contact, your SMS, and one other. Because there was a time I did a report on it, and I had to download the app. I went through the process. So you have to give access to so it has access to all of your contacts. If you have the phone number of the president,
So it just sends to random people.
the president will get the text. You know, the president will be in the meeting in the UK, and then he gets a text, thinks it's an important text, and it sees if you know any Emmanuel Jadigele borrowed 50,000. I mean, come on, let's not do that. So last story on the Punch newspaper: shareholders protest Wando plans to listing share acquisition, as on page 20 of the Punch newspaper. And that's all on that paper this morning.
All right, moving on to the Guardian newspaper. The headline says, Afenifere Ohaneze, Arewa youth rejects interim government plan. Plot. And the writers say Adebanjo Ajayi remains suspended, has no right to issue statement for Afenifere. Ndigbo, not part of any conspiracy, plans to attend Tinubu's swearing in. Decide presidential petitions before May 29, Agbakaba tells Tribunal. Natives stage peaceful march, vows to resist moves to truncate democratic rule. Yes, this is similar to what we had on the Punch. And
yeah, you can see the banner there on the march again, countdown to May 29. But one thing that has struck me as very interesting in this election cycle is the fact that some politicians now have to have people protest on their behalf, you know, for others to accept their results.
yeah,
If I am dissatisfied, or if a group is dissatisfied about the outcome of the result, they are at liberty to explore all legal means to express their displeasure. And that includes peaceful protests, that includes approaching the courts. So if you see those actions as trying to truncate democracy, I'm speaking generally now. If you see, then it speaks to the quality of your own victory.
yes,
If I have won an election, I don't need to tell people to go to the streets to canvass support for me,
and
ask people
gather all evidence,
and ask people to accept my mandate. No, I don't do that. I simply wait for you in court if you will meet there. You know, all of these people who are saying, you know, trying to support no mandate was stolen. If people say their mandate was stolen, let them go to court. If they are already in court, why are you asking them to? Why are you trying to psychologically and emotionally blackmail them? And that's what struck me as interesting in this year's election. A lot of people going on the street to support this candidate, to support that candidate. And it is the winners who are having it. I've never seen it play out that way. It has always been losers or the runners up now who are always on the street. But now I'm seeing people supporting winners of elections all over the country, at state level, at House of Assembly level, at presidential level, going out to say, our candidate won, stop making noise, accept it, no mandate was stolen, you're trying to truncate democracy. Now, yes, there is the genuine threat, according to the DSS, of the plan to install an interim government. That is something that should be taken care of. But seeing the actions of aggrieved persons in legal means as trying to truncate democracy is what I don't understand. People can protest whatever they want. You are also having your own march or rally, you know, so
and
a lot of people do that.
Some weeks ago, they were asking that this protest be banned, should be stopped, and then they're having marches now in support. Should these ones be banned stand.
So this is just interesting. Well, I saw Olisa Agbakoba's statement yesterday, and that seemed to resonate with a lot of persons who want the petition tribunal to decide the presidential elections before May 29th. But I think that that's calling it to a close. They should be allowed to do a thorough job within the ambit of the time that they have.
Yes.
Once that time has not been exhausted, there's no point rushing them. Let the inauguration take place. It's good for our democracy. Power has to change hands after the statutory 4 years or 8 years in the case of President Buhari. If there are any litigations, the swearing in doesn't stop the litigation. It continues, and
there are also genuine fears with the judiciary and thinking that when this person now, when the president-elect is sworn in, powers might, be enforced in some places.
Well, then it becomes a test for our judiciary. Now is the time to prove themselves. There's been so much. I personally do not like the fact that the CJN has been in the news too much recently. Starting from last year, where he said he was quoted out of context, for congratulating Shey Makinde being a member of the G5. The Supreme Court came out to give a disclaimer and said that was not what he meant. It was quoted out of context. Recently, he was in the news again, different. I mean, that does not speak too well. He may not be doing all of those things, but it does just the same way INEC came under heavy scrutiny before the election. And after the election, nobody saw the good things they did. They mirrored INEC via what they had done, some of the mess up they have had. So I think that's going to call to question also the strength and integrity of the judiciary going forward. If the Supreme Court's justice or justices, any of them have been in the news recently for any case, any reason, it's going to somehow taint perception of people, but then perception is injustice. We hope that they do the right thing.
Right thing, yes. All right, to the bottom strip of the paper now, worries over revenue. Petrol scarcity as buyers shun Nigerian oil cargoes, and that's on page 6. People are still worrying over this petrol scarcity. We're still having a lot of that worry with us right now. And then on page 4, why media needs ombudsman, the energy president. And then just, I think that's all we have on the Guardian newspaper.
All right, let's quickly move on to the Daily Trust this morning. The Daily Trust newspaper, popular restriction, Nigeria imports 300 billion naira palm oil in 6 years. Gets supply from Malaysia, India, China, Cameroon. The barrel sells for over $600. Work vision needed to revamp sector coming from experts. You can see the cost of Nigeria's palm crude oil import in 6 years. See the graphics there on page 4. Now, my question is that...
Yes.
I think we have the same question.
Yes, I think we do.
We have palm trees.
What happened to our palm trees?
I don't know.
What happened to the palm oil we have in Nigeria? Is it not enough for us? Is it not satisfying?
We're importing from Cameroon and all the way from Malaysia.
India.
I mean, is there anything we don't import in this country? $600 per barrel
this
of palm
used to
oil.
Be one of our staples. Like, it was a major oil. I mean, a major money generating commodity for Nigeria.
Well, the graphics aren't too nice, honestly.
At all.
I mean, 70 billion in 2022, 134
it says
in 2021,
billion.
22 billion in 2020,
Yes.
19 in 2019, 32 in 2018, and 21 in 2017. 300 billion naira importing palm oil in 6 years. Okay. At the bottom strip, Nigeria struggling to find buyers for crude. Page 19. 558 ministries, departments, and agencies fail to account for 969 billion naira budgetary allocations. 969 billion naira cannot be accounted for by 558 MDAs. I mean, why do we even have 558 MDAs? It's just a duplication of offices, duplication of roles and job descriptions. And now nobody knows what's been done with almost $1 billion naira. Well, you can see more on that story on page 6 of the Daily Trust. Page 10 says many injured as PDP APC supporters clash in Rivers. Page 27, Obi's leaked audio, my name was wrongly mentioned, Olofa. And above the banner headline, Trump lands in New York, meets lawyers ahead of arraignment today. Nigerian media owners launch complaints commission, say initiative on gag press. JAMB apologizes as Oyedepo's university flayed for barring hijab wearing candidates. That's also on page 6 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
All right, quickly on the Nation newspaper, the headline says, governors-elect at war over funds projects. Governors-elect at war over funds projects. Aliyah takes on Autumn in Benue. Oti tackles Ikpeazu in Abia. Kano, it's Abba versus Ganduje. It's Abba versus Ganduje.
I see. I see no reason why this should be happening.
Yeah.
A governor-elect is a private citizen until inauguration. You have no power, no constitutional powers
yet.
You can just continue to play opposition. But I've seen, well, you get to see more on that on the trends. But I've seen, for instance, in Kano now, what we were discussing yesterday, the advisory given by the governor-elect, Abba Yusuf, for me, people may say that is unnecessary. People may say that, and I agree to some extent that the wording of that advisory was wrong. But we've seen incumbent governors in the twilight of the administration get into
a lot of
projects, appointments, borrow money, and do all of that just to label the traps for the incoming administration. And so some of these things may just be a way of raising alarm. Because they don't have any powers to enforce anything.
Is quite okay. But asking to be sought, asking that your permission be sought before some things can be done. Everyone
craves power, and then when that power comes, I mean, for me, the sherry of the whole thing was that the governor-elect number plate by Father Hyacinth Aliyah of Benue. I still think about this in gold, very beautiful color. So will he would jettison that and then use governor when he's sworn in. So what happens to that number plate is useless.
At least
or he'll give it to the next.
It's his money. It's his money.
You're very sure it's his money?
Yeah.
All right. So that's that. The governors and governors-elect at war over funds and projects.
All right, just below that story, presidential poll credible. APC, US writes Biden, McCarthy. And just beside that, APC organs should function. NWC members tell Adamu. Parties should avoid 2015 scenario on National Assembly positions. And to the bottom strip, suspect killer of lawyer Vandy has case to answer. Suspect killer of lawyer Vandy has case to answer. Court rules.
Well, on a lighter note, most of the papers seem to be having grammar issues this
today,
morning. Yes. The headlines are being
I think that's
very
because
worrisome.
of space, but then
maybe they were rushing or something. But that particular headline, that particular story really warmed my heart when I saw yesterday the court threw away the no case submission by the killer of that lawyer in Lagos, the woman who was shot dead on Christmas Day. And it's really, really important that we continue to tread this part, the part of justice. So now he must answer a case. He does have a case to answer. A very good one from the courts there.
Yes. And just below the nameplates, funeral for Kala's wife to hold in U.S. Funeral for Kala's wife to hold in U.S. That's on page 3. And APC PDP supporters clash at Rivers INEC, and that's also on page 6. And above the nameplate, NFIU may give governors more time to comply with cash limit. Why we are wary of government regulation by media owners. Ombudsman inaugurated. And here we have oil price rises to $84 per barrel. Unions back to near extension for Naseni CEO Hariner. That's on page 3. And Singer Portable gets bail. Page 6. Emmanuel, you might want to enlighten us on Singer Portable's.
Why are you asking me to enlighten you? Portable was in court yesterday, and he was granted bail, given bail conditions, but at the time of at that time he could not meet his bail conditions, so he was taken to the prison. But later in the day, he was able to meet the bail conditions and was granted.
It seems to be contrite now.
Well, the truth is, I suspect that he appeared to be in discomfort. I suspect that he had been battered by police officers. You know, somebody made a point though and said he may be suffering from withdrawal symptoms, maybe because he's not had access rather to some drugs or something in remand. But you could see that he was in distress. His face was swollen, so he may have been battered or assaulted. You can't put that past the police.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is good that we now know that there are consequences for our actions. If you do, like they say in local parlance, if you do anyhow, you see anyhow. And I hope that this teaches him a lesson. And one other valuable lesson, like we're discussing in the vehicle yesterday, is that you cannot hide under politicians. When push comes to shove, you would have to face it alone.
Yes.
You know, nobody was really willing to stand shorty for him yesterday, because come on, I mean, it's Portable. The guy is accused of assault. What does he do? He goes ahead and makes a video saying, yes, I did assault someone. I mean, come on, that's the person you want to stand shorty for. But it's good that he's learning his lessons, and we hope that he stays contrite going forward. And then the same way Naira Marley became really humble and low-key after his travels with the FCC, we hope that applies to Portable too.
All right. Okay, that's all we have on the Nation newspaper.
All right, so we'll go on our break now. When we come back, we'll bring you a guest to discuss INEC constituting a legal team of 9 sons, budgeting 3 billion naira for the elections, petition defense, and we're looking at how many of these cases are in court, how many persons are challenging the elections, and what the burden is for the Nigerian judicial system. Stay with us.
Arrested, affected, sound, found. What do we see? What do we say? Flowing from a spring. A fact A to Z. Check and confirm. Ever expounding current events. Traveling down from the business gist to the globally arising happenings, to the sports news, to the bittersweet infos. Guided transmission, even diffusion, vast and fast, detailed facts are fled. Within seconds, nuggets of words that flew across borders are fired. Stories short and long, wrapped in bundles of words, broken and dissected as it is, except misheard. This is the news as it is.
Turn it up is the Wild Wild West, and Western Spring Television is pulling out all the stops to make sure that you don't miss out on every of the fun and happenings around you. Yup, we've got you covered because your girl got all the juiciest tidbits and entertainment news from around the world. Cross over to the chocolatey side of entertainment. Join me, Chocolate Cassie, on Eccentric as we take you into every bit of the juiciest news, fashion, music, movie updates, and other trending conversations. Together on the show, we'll get personal with your favorite celebrities via phone call, Zoom, or even live here in the studio. Eccentric will be shown on your TV screen on Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on StarTimes.
Here are 5 amazing fun facts I bet you never knew about Christianity.
Number 1, there are over 2.4 billion Christians worldwide.
Amazing fun fact number 2. The Bible is one of the best-selling books of all time, with more than 100 million copies sold every year.
Most Christians believe in heaven and hell.
The Bible is the most translated book in the world, with more than 3,000 languages.
Amazing fun fact number 5. Most Christians throw science out of the window without realizing that most scientists are Christians. Hello, I am Pastor Steve Akinwumi.
And I am Dr. Adeoye Oyewole.
Join us as we highlight and discuss day-to-day issues pertaining to the day-to-day living of every Christian.
Issues in Christendom shows every Sunday on Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on StarTimes.
Sports is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of action.
All right, welcome back to the show. It's still Morning Spring on Western Spring Television, where we bring it to you as it is. We've had the newspaper review segments. Now, time to talk to our guest, and we have in the studio with us this morning the Executive Director of Kimpact Development Initiative, KDI, Mr. Bukola Idowu. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I know you've answered this question so many times on different platforms, but let's start with, you were very much involved in the election process. What did you make of this year's process compared to 2019, 2015, and the other general elections?
Well, I think this year election just showed us the reality of what we have been dealing with since 1999. It made the election so real, and so that we could actually see our true picture. Because in the past, what we have seen, 1999, 2003, 2007, 2011, and 2015, and even 19, we have been building something or nothing. And so what this election just shows us is that we did not even have any foundation for the election, and it actually opened us to the reality. So the most important thing now is for us to now begin to have a frank conversation on how to go back to the drawing board and build serious structure around our electoral system. And by structure, I mean a lot of, I just mentioned 3 components. Number one, you look at the legal framework at which we run our election, a bit flawed. You look at election administration, election logistics. These are a whole lot of challenges. You also look at the players. You look at the election management body, the INEC, which is supposed to be the referee. You look at the politicians, and then you look at the security agencies. So all these institution structure make up our what election should be, and we determine whether the election will be free, fair, and credible. But when you now have a deficiency in most of this structure, it just shows us the reality that we can't actually build something or nothing, because majority believe that the introduction of technology will actually be the game changer. But I keep saying, you see, technology has a way of enhancing the true picture of who you are and what you can do and your capacity. So technology will not give you integrity if you don't have integrity. So if your process doesn't have integrity, technology will amplify that error. So it's just like we are in the studio now, there are people behind the camera, everybody is here. No matter how good you are, technology will amplify the state-of-the-art technology of the camera will amplify your competence. Then if you are not also good, we also amplify that and show that to the world. And say, hey, you have some rookies here who are not so, and that is what technology have done. That is what Beavers have done, and that is what a lot of these technology we introduce have done. So, but I just hope that so because the election did not really move us closer to where we are. In fact, it has if the election took us back, and I have a lot of how will I put it now? Evidence to back that up. So because it just took us back to 2007. Yeah.
Okay, so let's come back to what we have today now. A lot of reactions have been trailing INEC's decision to hire SANS. 9 of them led by former Nigerian Bar Association President Abubakar Balarabe Mahmood to lead its defense into the election petition. We're still going to come to the number of petitions that we have already, but some persons are saying that INEC is supposed to be neutral. You have lawyers in your legal department already who can, appear for you in court. From your standpoint as an observer and someone who is really into the system, was there any problem with INEC getting those SANS?
No problem at all. Yeah, you see, people need to understand how this works. You see, okay, let me give you a scenario. After May last year, when we had the primaries election, all the political parties had. Now, something happened. The number of pre-election cases in court was over 1,500 pre-election that came from the primaries. Some of them are still not being determined. We still have I think we have about 1,000 and I think 1,355 thereabouts determined before the election. Don't forget, just last month, before the governorship election, the Supreme Court was still determining some cases of who is going to be the candidate, and also asking some political party that you are not supposed to be on the ballot, and that is before the election. Now, this is my point. 1,500 pre-election cases. INEC was joined in 700 of them. So what it means is that when the petitioner or the what is it called, the lawyers, the political party are filing their case in court, they also join INEC to say, hey, come and answer this. So INEC have to defend themselves too, to either say the election we conducted was good or it was not good. So they have to just also defend themselves. And And when you, and that is just 700 cases. Why INEC is preparing for election, they are also going to court. So that tells you that it is just normal. In the budget of INEC for this election, they have like a little bit over 3 billion, or if, let me just stay at 3 billion for the legal expenses that is going to be for the election. The same way they have budget for technology, the same way they have budget for security, for ad hoc staff and everything. So they also have, because definitely people will go to court, and at the same time, why people go to court, they join INEC and say INEC. So for instance now, if you have seen the petition of APC, I mean the petition of Labour Party, presidential, the petition of PDP, the first respondent, I mean, when you look at the respondent, you see INEC there. So INEC also have to now say, look, since you are also taking us to court, then they have to defend themselves. It is not Mahmoud that will defend himself. So, and that is why they have to go and get lawyers. However, some people will say, but INEC should have lawyers. So, for instance, Oshun, I don't think Oshun INEC office have up to 3 lawyers. You know, in their legal department. Maybe they only have 1 or 2. But, or let's even say they have 3 that will be able to go to court. But don't forget, you have 26-member House of Assembly. So, which means each of the 26 they also have challenger who challenge them at the election. So what it means is that, just imagine if only out of 26, if only 10 of them decide to go to court and say, look, I'm not comfortable with this election. So what do you have? Can the 3 INEC staff alone, who are lawyers, go to court and then begin to deal with all the 10 cases in court? No. And it's also possible when you don't have, if the petition time is not time bound. Because it's time bound, you have to dispense everything within 180 days. So you can't be calling for necessary adjournment because you need to attend to another case tomorrow. So what it means is that they now have to extend and hire private lawyers to assist them in prosecuting some of these cases. And they are not the first. ICPC do that. EFCC do that too. So they get, Kayamo wants handle case for EFCC and the rest of them. So it is just normal practice, you know. That is. However, for me, all these things are needless if you conduct free, fair, credible elections.
Yes,
people will not go to court.
I was going to ask you that the number of cases in court now. Let's look at the presidential election. 2 other candidates, Solomon Okangwan of the Action Alliance and Chichi Ojei, the only woman on the ballot of the Allied People's Movement, have also challenged that. So let's say now we have 4 presidential petitions in tribunal, 4 petitions in tribunal. For now, we don't know if the rest will be going to court. Do you think that INEC would have had nothing to defend if the process had been free, fair, and credible? Some persons have said it's not.
As a matter of fact, let me give you an update. As a matter of fact, of yesterday, the number of petitions from the presidential election on the 25th alone, the number of petitions for the presidential is 5 now. The number 2 is for the National Assembly, that is the Senate and the House of Rep. What we have tracked and what we have presently is 512. So 512. So for 25th elections alone, on the 25th of February election alone, we have 517 petitions. So that is what we have. So don't forget, for the governorship election, which is the one that took place on the 18th, they are still filing petition. Many of them are still getting ex parte motion to inspect ballot paper to be able to, INEC materials to be able to file their petition, but they are still within their 21 days to file. So we are still waiting for the a huge amount of petition that will come from there. But that is to tell you that INEC conducted an election in a day. You understand? For House of Rep, 360 seats. For Senate, 109 seats. And for the presidency, only 1 seat. And out of these, you already have 517 17 petition, it shows something is wrong. And that is it. Something is extremely wrong with that election. And that is one of the things that I am saying that affected the election. And I give you an example. You see, what we are doing now is that we have taken our observation from the election day. We are now with them at the tribunal. So we are monitoring, we are observing, we train all our observers recently, 37 of them, all of them across all the 36 states. So we have them and many more like that. So the primary observers we train are just 37. We are also going to step it down so that we can cover all the tribunals. But now, from these 517 petitions, the greater number of them, the grant for petition that took the highest is that the election did not follow the Electoral Act. So, did not follow the due process. So that is to tell you that something is wrong with the election INEC conducted. And that is what pushed people back into the, into the tribunal. So, and I give you an example. The last time we have over 1,000 petitions in this country. In 2015, we have 602 or thereabout petitions in 2015. In 2019, it climbed up to 811. Now, but from one election, now we already have 500. So now, we've not counted the other people who are already jostling for to come to court. Now, but this is where I'm now going. My fear is that we might likely have up to 1,000 or more petitions. So, and the last time we had that kind of number of petitions in this country was 2007. So that is to tell you that the election is similar to what we have in 2007.
Despite the introduction of technology.
Despite the introduction of technology. And don't forget, it was in that 2007, late President Yar'Adua said, look, the election that brought me in is flawed, and set up Justice Uwais Commission. So, because the election then was terrible. The election is still going on and seeing winner in Abuja. So that is to tell you that this is looking similar to that. And it's actually disappointing.
But some people have argued that our democracy is quite young and that all of these problems are related to young democracies. Do you agree with that?
No, I disagree with that. Our democracy is not young at all. I mean, we only have break. And that's just the truth. We only had break at some point in time. Military came in. So when in 1960, when we had the first election around 1956 or thereabout, and those are the parliamentary election. Don't forget at the independence, we had the parliamentary system. We have the Prime Minister, Tafawa Balewa, and his president then, Nnamdi Azikiwe. So we were having, for 6 years, we were having democracy. Government of the people, by the people, for the people, till 1966. So, but the election did not take place in 1960. It took place before then. So, which means people have been in power, and then we have been testing the parliamentary system till 1966 when the military took over. Then the military took over. In 1979, we went back to democracy. Obasanjo conducted the election. Shagari won. Again, Shagari won in 1983 until Buhari took over. Now, after Buhari, we had Babangida, we had Abacha. But Buhari, between Babangida, conducted June 12, 1993 election. Now, even at that time, don't also forget that though what we had was a mixture, because you still have you still have the military president, and you still have state governors elected. In Osun State, that was when we have Isiaka Adeleke. And then you still have the president, the military, because they were trying to do the transition back to the civilian rule in phases until everything scattered in 1993. But don't also forget, we came back in 1999 to 2023. How many years? So if you look at, put the pieces together, from 1956 or 54, we had that election, to 1966, how many years do you have? Then 1979 to 1984, 85, when Buhari took over, and then you now come back to 1999. You find out that if not at par or the same time we had the military, so this is not, we are not young at all, if you ask me. And at the same time, what do you call young? Now, this is my point. If it took US 100 years to get their democracy right, then it shouldn't take us 100 years to get it right. Do you know why? Because we have every ample opportunity to learn. They made mistake for 100 years. Must we make mistake for 100 years? And that is the truth. So people, I mean, for some of us who have kids, we have our children. Many of us did not enjoy the luxury of what our children are enjoying now. But you can't even find, maybe a sensible parent that will say, look, because I hawk on the street to pay my school fees, my children must also do the same to learn. No, because why you do that, why you hawk to pay your school fees, you are already preparing a leverage that your children will learn and will not be able to do that the same thing you did. So for me, we have textbooks, we have political scientists showing out. Some of them are professors. INEC chairman is a professor of political science. A lot of them professors. Many of them studied abroad. Then we have countries to understudy. Why are we still failing? So because we have everything we need. Why are we still failing? A lot of reasons. So it is not because we are young. It is because of the players and the structures we have in place that is making it to be like this, because we need to be sincere and tell ourselves the truth. Because we can't be hanging it on we are young. It's a young democracy. No, it is not. So, but we have the players who doesn't want to play by the rules. And that is the reason. All right,
so Mr. Idowu, in one of your briefings that I attended, you advocated the creation of a special court for elections. Do you still see that something that is needed?
That is for me, that is the best way to go, and that is our point. This election petition tribunal, forget about it. It's not the best way. And let me give you one of my reasons. As I'm talking to you now, the 36 states of this country, including Abuja, will be having election petition tribunal. The governorship, the State House of Assembly, the National Assembly, everybody is busy. Now, can you guess the number of judges that have been pulled out from regular courts to be part of the panel? The panel that will man the election in Osun State are not from Osun State. Judges from Osun State are posted to other states. So let me ask you, if you are able to take 5, which I know may be more, judges from Osun to go, because you take from high courts, at times you take from magistrate courts, so where if they don't have enough hand, they also pick from Sharia courts. So what it means is that you take judges from high court in Osun State here, and you post them to maybe Ebonyi, you post them to Nasarawa, just using that as an example, to go and empanel a panel session there. Now, what it means is that they have 180 days to dispense their case. So 180 days is approximately 6 months. So what you are saying is that these people are leaving their regular courts, leaving the cases they are sitting on, and they will be away for 6 months. Chances are that when they come back, there will be legal break, the legal holiday, always around August. So, in other words, both civil and criminal cases are stopped right now in those courts that these people are. And go and find out. I have done my findings. I have interacted with some of the judges. An average judge in this country sits on nothing less than 100, to be conservative, 120 cases that just one judge, I'm not saying a court, just one. This is adjourning this is 120. Now multiply that, but let's even say we have 28, let's even say we have 30 governors, governorship election petition. Let's even assume we have 30. 3 of them times 30 states. That is for governorship. In some cases, the you have what is it called? You have state house of assembly different. You have maybe they combine at times they combine some of them, but you have them different, state house of assembly, national assembly different, governorship different, and then so you have three panel times 30 states. That is already giving you like about 90. So 90 judges times an average of 120 cases, both civil and criminal. Stop for the next 6 months. Is that sustainable because we have election? Don't forget that the day of election, 2-3 days before the election, the whole country is shut down because we are having election. On the day of election, you can't go to work. You can, except you are on essential services. So what? And then we had election in other countries. In fact, I tell you the story of what happened in the U.S. One of my mentors went to the U.S. and I think the wife was sick, and then it happened to be the time they had they are having an election, and then he had an appointment with the doctor, and then so at the end of the day, I think the doctor came like about 10 minutes late, and the doctor was apologizing that I am so sorry for coming late. I just quickly went to cast my vote before coming. So really, you mean the election is going on, and then you can't find the military on the street, you can't find the DSS, the whole country is not shut down? That is what we should emulate. That's what we should emulate. So now the courts are going to shut down because there is election for the next 6 months in some of the judges that are put there. So you have I think you have a lot of judges that are going to be in that place. So why is it that somebody, and I'm also telling you, including judges from industrial courts. So if you have cases in those places, they are. Let me give you a practical scenario of what happened in 2019 and why we came to this. Now, you know the normal thing, what is it called? These police, they normally do. They just go, I think they had information about a robbery case somewhere, and then they got to the place, they rounded everybody up. Everybody, they find the neighbors, your house is two houses to the scene. They rounded everybody up. They took them to the station. Now, one of the person they took was just a woman, but I think the woman was like about 9 months pregnant. I mean, was about 3 months pregnant. But you know, that was not showing, really. So at the end of the day, they took them to court. So the court, the judge was, they took them to court. I think one of the magistrate courts there now, who was also going to be part of the election petition. I'm talking about 2019. Now, what happened is that the judge adjourned the case. Now, in the process of adjourning the case, but were remanded in the prison. So in the process of adjourning the case, now, in between, the judge went for election petition tribunal job, came after 6 months. Before he came back, the woman gave birth in the prison. Still waiting bail. For bail. So this is why can't we have a special court that we try? Don't forget, I just said, like, we have like about over 1,500 pre-election cases. So the electoral court can try that.
All right.
Then the electoral court can try election day offenses.
All right.
And this tribunal.
Okay, so we'll take a quick break now so that we can join our other guests who would be talking more about the judiciary now when we return. I will take a break. We'll be speaking with Mr. Vokalaido, who is Executive Director of King Parks Development Initiative. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Arrested, affected, sound, found. What do we see? What do we say? Flowing from a spring. A fact A to Z. Check and confirm. Eva is pounding current events, traveling down from the business gist to the globally arising happenings, to the sports news, to the bittersweet infos. Guided transmission, even diffusion, vast and fast. Detailed facts are fled. Within seconds, nuggets of words that flew across borders are fired. Stories short and long, wrapped in bundles of words, broken and dissected as it is, except misheard. This is the news as it is.
Welcome back to the show. We're still on Morning Spring on Western Spring Television, and we've been having conversations around the legal issues, litigations arising from the 2023 general elections. We're now joined live by Dr. Misbah Lateef, who is a legal practitioner all the way from the United Kingdom. Good morning, Dr. Lateef.
Yeah, good morning. How are you today?
Very well. How are you too?
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, so we've been having a chat with Mr. Abukola Idowu, the Executive Director of Kimpact Development Initiative. Here is into good governance, and he was actively involved, his team was actively involved in the election. And he's told us now that we have 517 petitions already confirmed is expected to rise. Dr. Lateef, what do you make of these issues, legal issues arising from the elections? Do you think that we should be at this point?
Well, definitely we should not be at a point or any point where we will have the court to determine for us, who has won or has not won an election. I mean, that is something appalling in a democracy. So it is quite worrisome that we have shifted our electoral, I would say, decisions away from the people, from the polling booth to the courts. And scholars have looked at this when they said that excessive judicialization of politics, that's how they call it, that is when you resort to the court to determine electoral dispute, you expose the court to compromises, you expose the court even sometimes to ridicule, and then you compromise your democracy. So it is actually something that should worry all stakeholders. And as we have seen so far, or as we can see, this excessive use of the courts to determine our, electoral cases has succeeded in eroding the confidence of the populace in the judicial system. And if this is not nipped in the bud on time, we might as well have a judiciary that is not worth, what the Constitution, contemplate or envisages the courts to be. So it is worrisome, it is disturbing, and it is unfortunate that we don't seem to really be consolidating our democratic culture the way we consolidate, I would say, electoral rituals. So we seem to have focused more on the rituals of conducting election every 4-year cycle, when we have really not grown in terms of democratic culture, fairness, and I would say attributes. So it is quite disturbing and unfortunate, and it is a burden that we should ordinarily spare our courts, of. You won't see this example in other democracies. I mean, where you have most of their electoral cases determined by the court. So it is disturbing.
All right. Dr. Lateef, before we come back to Mr. Ido, who was just speaking about constituting special courts for elections, in 2022, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwoola, told us that there was a shortfall of justices in the Supreme Court. So we have only 13 left on the bench, despite the Constitution providing for 21. That was as of December last year. And there were 6,800 cases at the Supreme Court, with some appeals dating back to 2006 and being heard for the first time in 2022. Add this to the exponential increase that we have in electoral cases. Do you think that our judiciary can stand the weight of all of these cases?
Well, you see, you have to match your personnel with, I would say, the financial capacity and all of that. Yes, the Supreme Court is not yet fully, I would say, we do not have the full complement of justices that the Supreme Court, that the Constitution envisages that we should have at the Supreme Court, so we don't have up to 21. And the same thing applies to other courts. So basically, we are, I would say, judicially understaffed in terms of personnel. And of course, this also impacts on efficiency, which, as we have seen. But you see, this burden, for me, goes beyond the electoral cases that have continued to pile up. I think it has to do more with the structure of our governance. You see, we still have a centralized system to the extent that perhaps we need to break down the structure, I would say, a little more to give the state capacity to determine some of the cases. And even so, there are quite many cases that end up at our Court of Appeal or Supreme Court that don't necessarily have to go to that court. And I'll give an example. A tenancy case, let's say in a community in Osun State, could travel as far, one, as from the magistrate courts, then to the High Court, and then to the Court of Appeal, and then to the Supreme Court. So why should a tenancy matter, a case of whether someone has paid the landlord or whether the landlord has the power to evict someone from a premises? So we have too many cases like that ordinarily should not travel. So we need to first ensure that we have we moderate, if you ask me, the type of cases that go to our different courts, and also we also improve on the personnel or the capacity. So you can't have enough justices. That's the point. So what we can do at best is to reduce, I would say, the penchant for litigations. And we do that when all of us, all stakeholders, not only the court, comply with due process or the requirement of law in things that we do, so that people don't necessarily have to resort to litigations, going to court over matters and all of that. So in summary, I'm saying that the challenge with our courts are not necessarily because they are burdened by the cases that border on electoral disputes. There are quite many other cases, and then we don't have enough personnel to handle it. So it is, for me, a systemic problem, a problem that has to do with the structure of governance. Our federal system or the structure, should have the full complement of what a federal system should have. The state should have, I would say, greater or more power than they have now. There should be devolution of powers and even resources, so that when you give more powers to the state or maybe responsibility, then you accompany that, with resources to attend to those, responsibilities. So really, we have a lot to do, and we can only hope that the stakeholders, the important stakeholders here, are taking note of these challenges and they are doing the right thing to address them. All right. So,
Mr. Ido, I saw you nodding ahead to along to what he was saying. He started by saying that the system, needs to be rejigged and all of that. And you've given some really damning statistics about the number of cases that will have to be put on hold when these judges have to go for electoral issues. But now let's come back to what he said also, allowing the courts decide who wins the election, on issues of technicalities and some of those other things, is that really good for the political system? Where's the place of the will of the people? And that is why I was not there, and I agree with him 100%. You see, we cannot, in fact, what we are doing now is like we want the courts to replace INEC, and which is a dangerous trend. You see, and I think that election is around the people. The people should take ownership of that. And I give you an example. You see, one of the things that cause apathy in Imo, and of course also when you interview people that like, look, you have a bit of unrest in that state, I was like, okay, after some time, just find out that the election has been concluded. Then, like about a year after the election has been concluded, the Supreme Court came and said, hey, this is now the winner. How many people? Maybe 5 justices. So what it means is that 5 people eventually determine the governor of that state. And meanwhile, on the election day, over 400,000 people came out to vote. Over 400. So at the end of the day, you have 5 people saying this is the winner. So how encouraging is that? Why do people vote? So at some point, now for those of us on the field, the civil society, when you go to do voter education, you now begin to say, look, we know that the court will still tell us who will win. These people, they will still go to court and tell us who will win. Well, there is no need of coming out. These are the implications. And he says something. The reason why we are having this is because, and I already said it earlier, it is, I don't know why it's difficult for the players to play by the rules. You find a political party who want to govern the country cannot also abide by their own party constitution. So they have internal issues, crises that still end up in Supreme Court before the election. Why that is going on, they are going for election, that same election also end up in Supreme Court. All manners of things. In fact, from getting party tickets to contest, you find out that case can go up to Supreme Court. Now, to conduct that primaries, you will still find out that 2 factions. This one we say they are the real faction. This one is another. That case we also get to Supreme Court. Now the election eventually, both of them will now have parallel primaries. At the end of the day, that same thing, they will expect Supreme Court to say, no, this is the right Congress. This is the right primary. After that, they will go to election. That same election, or that the people that contested in that primary, one will now go back. And that case we get up to, you remember Osun case, the primary for PDP got to Supreme Court. Now the election, we are not the election is at their peak, the main election. We also get to the Supreme Court. For how long are we going to do this? Is this not a distraction to the judiciary? So these are the things, these are frank conversation we need to have, and this is even better. In the past where we are coming from, the election litigation doesn't even have the time frame. So you can have it, somebody can even 3 years to finishing his first time. That is when the court will decide. So we have to have serious conversation around it. Stakeholders need to decide what to do. Dr. Lateef, now we've just learned that, as you also know, that judges are pulled off regular cases to sit on panels for election tribunals, and this leaves other cases on hold. Looking at the dispensation of justice now, is this fair to other persons that while they are in remand, while they are on bail waiting for their cases to be determined, the election takes over their fate? If you were in their shoes, what would you advise the government to do, and as a legal practitioner now?
Well, I think as a lawyer who has practiced in Nigeria and who still practice, I agree that when judges are taken off their regular cases, of course, that creates some vacuum, and I would say delay in the dispensation of justice. But I think the issue is probably more stress than it actually happens in reality. So I've handled cases while election petitions were ongoing. So there is a way the chief judge of different states or the president of the Court of Appeal, there is a way they adjust themselves to this. So I don't really think that these electoral cases that really come, a different cycle, not that they go on like we used to have under the previous electoral jurisprudence, which Mr. Idowu referred to earlier. I mean, when a case could go on for as far as 3 years or even more. So now that we have, I would say, definite period within which these cases are heard. So I think the issue really at this time is not whether when judges go off like that, other cases suffer. So I think in reality, there is a way that the court have, been able to adjust themselves to this. And I've not really personally experienced my case being unnecessarily kept on the docket of the court because a judge has gone on. There is always I would say a substitute or replace. There's a way the judiciary handles this, and I think we should give kudos to them on that. However, that is not to say that when they go off, that does not create distractions. Yes, it does. And this goes back to what we said earlier, that we really have to reduce excessive resort to the courts, particularly to determine our electoral dispute. But when we do that, what worries me the more is the kind of ridicule and even erosion of integrity that we expose our courts to. The courts are not supposed to wade into political matters. And this is why, as I said earlier, the Supreme Court of Nigeria has been mired, if you ask me, in some controversies in the recent time, because we have unfortunately exposed our courts to the electoral cases than we should. So basically for me, I think there's always an equilibrium, and the courts have always risen to that occasion, such that litigants hardly know that a judge who was handling their case, has actually gone be on another national assignment, as they often call it, or not. So there's a way they balance this, and I think the balancing so far, I would say, is fair. I have not personally experienced, a delay in my case because a judge, was seconded to go and do a national assignment somewhere. Okay. And particularly, so I said that we have time limits now. All
right. So as we begin to, round up, I like to. You said something that really worries me, and I think should also worry Mr. Idowu. Recently, the Supreme Court had to release a statement, I think earlier this year, asking people to be civil in criticizing it, particularly talking about Farouk Berogi and some other persons in the U.S. who really tore into the judiciary in the aftermath of the Ahmed Lawan issue. Now, do you think that all of these judicial issues, elections coming into the judiciary, like you said, will open up the judiciary to bribes and all of that? The CJN has also raised that concern. But where's the sanctity now of the judiciary when they have to now sometimes what is not in good conscience for some persons? That's what they will say, that this judgment is not in good conscience, but it is in line with the law, technicalities and what have you. What faith do you think this will make people have in the judiciary?
Well, I think first, the response from the registrar of the Supreme Court at that time, was an unprecedented low. That is something that should never have happened. The judiciary, as we say, can only be seen and not heard. Judges or courts are not supposed to issue statements to defend themselves, and we hope that will not repeat itself again. Now, having said that, I think the judiciary and the way they apply the law don't usually align, or sometimes I would say align, with the reasoning of the common folks on the street, such that when people have put their expectation in certain direction, they expect the court to travel in that direction, which in truth may not actually be the case when you subject the case to, the applications of the law. And yet, the judges, by law, are bound to apply the law and not the sentiment expressed on social media or printed in newspaper or expressed on TV. So again, the only way for me here is to reduce exposure of our court, I would say, to what the scholars have called judicialization of politics. So that we reduce, we minimize the danger that is already brewing, if not already settled in our system. So we really need to ensure that the judiciary as a last hope of the common man, the sanctity is upheld, and we don't allow a situation whereby confidence will be eroded, because if that happens, then we are going back to what is called state of nature. I mean, the judiciary is supposed to be the habitat where people go to, seeking redress. And then if there is no hope in that quarter, then it may well be, very dangerous and create anarchy in the system. So there are quite a number of issues that I think we need to address, which, as I said, are systemic. We really need to work on the structure of our governance, including the judiciary, and make the institutions work. But most importantly, the political elite. And I'm sorry, I don't know how to spare words when it comes to that. I think mostly we have this crisis because of the irresponsibility and failure of our political elite, who have continuously failed to play by the rule books. So until we get this right, I doubt if this cycle of failure, we ever stop in our system, and that's most unfortunate.
All right, so Dr. Ido, I'm saying Dr. Ido now. It seems like, the judiciary is shopping for respect and for confidence, as it were now. With all of these petitions going into court, how much confidence do you think people have in the court giving them justice?
The truth is that most people don't. I want to say that the trust the citizens have in the judiciary is going down and I'm saying this authoritatively because of the recent research that just came out, which I'm going to share with you, that talks about to what extent do people believe the judiciary are going to do the right thing when it comes to, and you see the number, you will be amazed. And of course, you don't blame them, you understand. It's just because and I see a gap here, because there are things around the judiciary common man don't understand. So, and of course, the judiciary don't work around sentiment. So how do we educate ourselves now? How do we educate the citizens to have that trust? Is another conversation we need to have. Secondly, is the politicians are gradually dragging the judiciary into that arena where they will no longer be respected. In fact, it took come out and say, look, stop all these conflicting judgments. It was bad at some point in time. That somebody will conduct an election in Imo and run to Jigawa to just go and get the judgment. Another person will go to a neighboring state, Ebonyi, get another judgment on the same election, and both of them become so conflicting. So you see, politicians are just dragging the judiciary into this kind of arena, which is not really good for them. And I think, and again, if you look at what the election has done, both INEC and the players, they have tactically shifted their inadequacy, their ineffectiveness, and then their mess, and then shifted it to judiciary, clear the mess for us. It shouldn't be, and that is why now everybody is now looking and say, hey, the judiciary, we are watching. In fact, some people are saying televised live because we want to see it. Because why are they saying televised live? Because they say we don't believe this process. Let us see what is happening there. So they are tactically shifting that kind of lack of trust into the judiciary. It's a dangerous trend that we need to really look into. And I think we still have good opportunity to reverse this case, to this trend. and we have to make use this window to do that.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Bukolaido, Executive Director of Kimpact Development Initiative, for your time on the show this morning. And Dr. Misbah Lateef, thank you so much for joining us all the way from the United Kingdom. I hope the weather is favorable at this time of the year.
Yeah, summer is fast approaching, so the weather is cool. Thank you.
And in 30 seconds, tell us about the jump of the time from 12 to 2 or thereabout. I saw it on social media.
Yeah, I think we have the same time zone now. I don't really understand much about timing, if you ask me. I just realized that we now have, the same time zone.
Okay. And it's going to change eventually also?
I don't really know much about this.
All right.
We operate at the same wavelength now, if you ask me.
Okay, all right. So thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning. But that's the show. That's the interview segment. I'll be back to give you what's trending. The Minister of Aviation has been in the news recently with his 12 billion naira trucks. You get to see that on Spring Trends when I come back.
All right, thank you for joining us this morning. I am Temitope Ajijola Oluwala. Good morning.